Hey guys, this is Naman. I'm the founder of reference.com. We are a market network for freelancers and agencies in India and around the world. Today, we are going to talk about a very crucial topics for startups, and that is about funding. How do you raise funding? How do you evaluate yourself whether you are a fundable startup or not? We are going to call it the T22 of startup funding, and we'll see the details of what these T's are and how do you actually score yours. So today we are going to talk about the T22 of startup funding. We are going to see what parameters do investors look at when evaluating a startup for funding. And these are very common parameters that we've heard about all the time, but maybe we've not paused and actually tried to judge ourselves on those parameters. So these three parameters are TAM, team, and traction. TAM is basically total addressable market, or what we call the market size. Now, when you talk about market size, a lot of people, they talk about how many humans are there in that market. Versus if you talk about how much dollar can be captured of those humans. So if you judge saying there are 1 million people who are going to order food online in US versus there are 1 million people who are going to order food online in India. Now both of them look like the same market. But when you look at the dollar value of this, you will see that US is suddenly higher because the wages are higher. Hence, people's willingness to pay for that delivery, the amount that they will pay will be higher. Hence, our TAM in US will increase, but TAM in India will be a lower number. Now, when you look at TAM, what you have to look at is three things. A, what is the current quantum of that? Is it already very big or is it like small? Second, is this growing? As in, are there tailwinds that are actually pushing this forward? So if you say that you're going to do a food delivery app and maybe, few years down the line when your app becomes successful, nobody will cook at home and everybody will order. Then if you look at this in a Western setting, maybe this is acceptable. But when you look at this in an Indian setting, what would happen to all the 40-year-old plus mothers in Indian households, right? Would they stop cooking? So the tailwinds in this case are not very favorable, but yes, they are favorable because, people are moving to metro towns and they've started living alone. So the TAM is expanding, but maybe not at that pace. The third thing is whether this TAM can actually be retained, which we actually call as moat. If I create a startup in this industry, will people stick to my app? So if people have gotten into this habit of ordering food online, is it possible that they stick to my app all the time? If people have, started doing recharge of their phones online, will they stick to my app or will they go to another app, right? And if you look at these three things, A, what is the quantum? B, what is the rate of growth? And the rate of growth is more important than what is the current quantum, because when Uber started, probably, the quantum of who would get a black cab on an app would be smaller. But the experience was so great that it looked like that the market would expand. And the third thing is whether there is a moat. So that is about TAM. And you have to judge on a scale of say 1 to 10, what your TAM looks like. So if today you have to maybe create a startup around electric cars. So are people buying more cars? Yes. And do people want to move away from petrol engine, diesel, internal combustion engines? Yes. So the market is moving in that direction. Hence it is a large and, a market that would probably score 9 on 10 or 10 on 10. Second thing is about team. Now, when you are at early stage, team would directly mean the founders only. And how do you judge a team? So imagine if Elon Musk had to do electric cars, I would probably give him like 10 or 10, right? If Bill Gates had to do, another operating system at the age of 30, 35, he would get a 10 on 10. So now when you are trying to do something, you have to judge whether you are a 7 or 8 on 10 to do that particular thing, right? If you're 22-year-old trying to do enterprise SaaS, you will score very, very low because you do not probably even understand what enterprise SaaS selling needs. If you're a 50-year-old trying to create apps for, a teenage audience, maybe you'll score very low in team because my perception of how well you understand that market is very low. Hence, I wouldn't rate you very high. So when you're judging the team, and obviously you have to look at past affiliations. So do your past employers matter? Yes. If I work for, big brands like Google, Flipkart, Microsoft, I would rate higher automatically because I look like a more dependable person. If I went to a great college, yes. So if I'm a 22-year-old just graduated from an IIT my score on the team would be higher, but say 20 years down the line, this wouldn't really matter because there will be more parameters to judge me on. The third parameter is traction. Traction is basically where are you in your journey today? So are you still at that idea phase where you're evaluating what the product should be, evaluating and actually carving out those details with respect to what your target audience is? Or have you already started generating some revenue? Now, when you look at this traction, at different phases, different things would be required. So if I'm going for my first round of money, you want to call it as a pre-seed or an angel round. Maybe, if I'm a founder with some idea and some background and the market is large and I've just started building the app, I might get funded. Versus I've been building this thing for 3 months, right? And I don't still have anything to show, right? Or in case of hardware startups, if you see people have been building for a couple of years and they still don't have like a working thing. If it's very, very difficult thing, like people are talking about flying taxis, right? So you could have a gestation period of 3 to 5 years there. But if you tell me this is a new Bluetooth speaker, probably a year and a half is enough to produce something like that. So the traction is basically judging how much have you achieved till date, and what it is actually judging is the momentum of how soon did you get. So when we talk about momentum, what we are actually talking about is time. How much time did you take to get here? And so when talking about time, there is another factor in the 3D that is called timing. Now, timing would determine what is the perception of the first 3 parameters. So we talked about TAM, team, and traction. But if you look at the timing will change my perception of the TAM. So as I told before, if I'm looking at electric cars, say in 1990, bad timing. If I'm looking at electric cars, say in 2050, maybe the market is already saturated. So yes, electric cars are a big market, but from where I'm standing today, it should look like a market that is growing, right? And there are some tailwinds that is helping it grow faster. Same thing when I look at, say, EdTech during the Corona period. It looked like a great TAM because, there was no other alternative. If I talked about food delivery startups during Corona period, again, great TAM because expanding market, people are trying new stuff, people are willing to spend money because they're no longer spending on, on food expenses or driving or going to a restaurant. So food delivery would look like a large market. Similarly on team, if you, just come out of a large startup and, you are pitching something that is very similar. So I've been part of, say, an enterprise software startup and trying to create another enterprise software, I will be taken more seriously as compared to, say, a college kid. Because my timing is great. I understand about the market and now I'm trying to apply that to my own startup. Same thing happens in traction where, if I've just achieved this J curve in terms of my revenue or in terms of user adoption, that is a great time to pitch your startup to investors as compared to, say, when there is some kind of stagnation. Now, the mistake that we do is stagnation is when we get fearful saying, okay, I need money because this thing is not growing. To keep fueling the thing, I need money. But this is a bad time to raise because you should have raised when you had this J curve to show. Right? Because that was great momentum. You were growing at a better than normal speed. So when you combine these 3 factors, TAM, team, and traction, and you apply timing as a quotient there, you will get a score for yourself. So let's try and again score Elon Musk for electric cars. So if today Elon Musk had to do electric cars and you had the opportunity to invest in that, the TAM, great, 10 on 10. Team, great. Maybe because of his behavior of Twitter, maybe you don't like him, but still you would give him a 9 or 10 on 10. Okay, so that's 19 already. Traction. Now at traction, if I said, this is just a, idea on paper, there's nothing else, right? Maybe it's score 2 or 3 on 10. If I said, okay, the prototype is ready, but we've not started manufacturing, probably you'll get 4 or 5 on 10. If I said, okay, he's collected a large team, there is already some money in the bank that other investors have, committed. Now suddenly, your perception of traction improves because traction is not just revenue. It may be user adoption. It may be what others are thinking about this. So this guy is already way ahead in his fundraise journey, you would rate him a little higher. So let's say 10 for TAM, 9 for team, and for traction, if this guy even scores say a 4, right, you would still score 23 out of 30. Now, if you start evaluating like this, different ideas, you will see anything that scores above 22 is very comfortable to get funded. Anything that scores below 20 is very, very difficult to get funded, unless you have like 2 10s and then 1 0. Now that is possible. There have been second-time entrepreneurs who've already had like multi-million-dollar exits, and now they're trying to do, new stuff where the TAM looks like 10 on 10, team looks like 10 on 10, but they're still a idea on paper where they would probably score 0 or 1 or 2 that can still get funded. So when you look at your startup and you say, okay, this guy doesn't even have anything and my site is already live, maybe as a team, they are better. Maybe as an explanation of TAM, they are explaining the TAM better than you. So although you have more traction, you are scoring lower on TAM because maybe you're not showing the big picture, or maybe your timing is just wrong, where I know that maybe online education is not as big as what it looked like 2 years ago. Maybe I know that crypto exchanges are not as big as what it looked like 3 years ago, right? But so irrespective of, maybe you're getting like an 8 on 10 on traction, but if you're scoring say 7 on team and, again, because of your timing, your TAM explanation is bad, you'll score around 19, 20, 21. And this is like the difficult phase where you score like anywhere between say 18 to 23, where, every person would give you a different score. And this is where you are either this side or that side, right? And you don't know if it is doing well or not, whether your pitches are landing right. So if you start evaluating and start improving probably the timing of it, or, just show a bigger picture in terms of TAM, saying, yes, these are the tailwinds because of which the TAM will grow faster than, the incentivization that we are doing. And these factors will then help you maybe shorten your journey towards funding. There are more things that I have put in the description that is around the 7 sins that your product must perform that will help you judge your TAM and your traction a little better. And there's another thing that I've talked about is on temporary markets that will help you evaluate the timing with TAM better. So, the links are in the description. Let me know, what you think about this in the comments. Thank you.